What's up, bud? Oops. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How you doing? How's everything been?
Doing well, David. How about yourself, man?
Doing okay, running around mentally.
Right.
For a couple of people to join in.
Okay. Yeah, my man CJ should be here in a minute.
Yep. Got to see CJ, what's going on? Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Awesome. Matt coming in too.
Good.
For a couple more people. What's up, Matt? I see there's a Christian, Victoria, and Lucas. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Awesome. If you guys just don't mind putting on mute, and if you guys have the ability to turn on the video, I appreciate it. If you don't, totally understand. Last time I asked him to do that, she was running on the treadmill listening to me talk. And I was like, you can shut it off now. He's like dripping and sweating and running through. And I was like, this is pretty impressive that you're that dedicated. And then next time she jumped on, she was at like Costco pushing a cart. I'm like, wow, that is dedication. Like, that makes me super happy. Awesome. So we'll go from there. Hello, Alexis. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, if you guys can just put it on mute, and then if you have the ability to turn on your video, you can. If you can't, no big deal. I was like looking at people's faces so I can kind of read the audience and kind of go from there. Christian, are you with Matt?
Yes, I am.
Cool. I like your beard. I'm very jealous. This is 40 years of no shaving.
Thank you.
This is it. That's the man I can get. I do save a lot of money, a dollar, whatever the heck it's called, shave club. Because I like do like 2 of them. I'm like, I'm done. We're ready to go.
Shoot.
All right, awesome. Well, if anyone else joins in, they can start. So, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. I kind of want to tell the what we're doing for the mentorship sessions. A lot of you guys reached out. Some of your friends are friends. A lot of you guys I know. I don't do this very often. I have 3 sessions. Everyone else pays for the sessions. I'm not obviously charging anybody here. This is just people I feel that, that asked, reached out. There is a qualification. It goes like this. If you have Facebook, I ask you to join the David Chen Panda Facebook. And what that does is it gives you previous lessons that if you miss, if you're too busy, you got to go on a date, whatever is going on in the world nowadays, you can definitely check it out, catch up there. You can share ideas. The other important part is you can synergize with people, and that synergy will create the energy that you need to really just kind of, continue to really grow your brands, work with other people, and go from there. The great thing about what we're trying to do is hold people accountable, and the accountability is the most important part because, I like to call this Team Panda and going from there. And then you have to believe in the method of my madness. I'll tell you about my background in a more clearer view and kind of where we're at. And, we only invite new people once a month. Everyone else basically does pay. So, congratulations if you got invited and going from there. Definitely not charging you. There's none of this stuff. It's just good, pure, we care and going from there. So, and I'll go through the first, maybe 40, 50 minutes about my story and things that I would like for you guys to learn and apply. And then we do hold accountability from that. I figure if I can give out my time for free, you could show up and be at the sessions, right? That's a fair trade-off. And of course, if there's someone that you're like, hey, dude, I really think that they'd be great, we should definitely add them on. I would love, just give me a message or shoot us at the Pandanomics podcast. We're honest taking care of it, and we'll go from there. And of course, the last part is make sure you sign up to David Chen Panda. That is going to register you, and that for any of our events that we have, whether I'm, throwing an ESPYs party or, an Oscars party or any openings, all the people that work with me are always invited to go to these things and mingle with celebrities and guests. And, as long as you don't embarrass me, you'll always be invited and kind of going from there. But it does give you access to those types of things. So let me go ahead and begin. So just checking one more thing before I do anything. Sorry guys, just 2 seconds. So, the first thing I kind of want to tell you is just my story. I think that's important for everyone to understand. And if some of you don't know me, so it would be a beneficial thing. And some of you might assume you know me, but it might not be the story. Oh, Alexis. There's 2 Alexis. Wow, okay. So my background obviously is, I'll tell you about what I'm currently doing and then how I kind of got here. So it's kind of, and if you could put on mute, that would be great too. Alexis, I appreciate that. For those of you that follow me on social media, it's David Chen Panda. I figured someone told you about me, or you followed me, or I was lucky enough to get interviewed by these amazing group of people and kind of told my story. But, I'm 40 years old. I just turned 42 months ago. I was supposed to go to some tropical island in Costa Rica, and all my great friends are there. It's a big number, and it just didn't happen because of COVID, right? And right now, it's a very, very hard time to deal with COVID and the way life is. And, when you look at my social media and you look at the branding, the one thing I want to tell everybody here is it's a highlight reel. That's all it is, right? There's so much work and so many tears and so much energy and so much stress that nobody happens to see outside of what you do in social media. And that is one thing I want everyone to understand is stop comparing yourself to everybody else. You have no idea what their stories are, right? And we as a society, we get bought into looking at everyone else's story in the industry and feeling that we are not achieving our goals or we're not doing the best things. Because we're doing that, that really causes a psychological issue and a damage, and it really hurts us and our feelings. The whole purpose of this is to be honest and truthful and tell you guys, John, if you could throw on me, that's great, and how I did it and where I'm at, and to let you understand it doesn't matter where you are or your background, your ethnicity, your sex. It just comes down to you as an individual and your ability to succeed. So first things first is I was the youngest managing partner at Deloitte. I ran a $30 million division I did it in 7 years, and Deloitte is the world's largest accounting finance firm. What's amazing about that is we did $46 billion, and we worked with 80% of the world's largest companies. And we did things like accounting, audit, tax, joint ventures, mergers, how to grow a company, business plans, consulting. And if you put in David Chen, Deloitte, Mexico, the #1 accounting finance firm in the world, you'll see me on like 400 articles with the president of China, the president of Mexico, being a keynote speaker. I've done a great amount of things in my corporate career that was very, very blessed. We had 82% of the marketplace. That means between all the other guys, we took 82%. And when I started it, we had 0% of the marketplace. So from 0 to 30 million, 0 to 82%, to being the most viewed website in our country, to becoming a global leader at 33 is insane. Here's the most insane part. I'm a college dropout. I did not graduate college at all, okay? So I became a partner at an accounting finance firm, and the day I show up to the partnership, they're like, we're gonna make you partner, this is great. Do you have a copy of your degree? And I go, what degree? And it shocked them, it shook them. It made them very upset because I fell through the cracks when I shouldn't have. And the story on that, I'll get to in a second. From there, I started my first private equity firm called BLCP Capital. In that firm, we focused on 3 spaces. One space was we did the real estate side where you bought and sold 380 properties, sold for millions of dollars. It was called a REIT, where you do government money and really sell it to government for pension funds. Number 2, I was in the cannabis space. I bought a license, ran it. It's called, and always for branding, it's called Green Panda Dispensary. You can look it up, Green Panda Dispensary AZ. Bought it for 3.2, flipped it for 6.7 in its first year. Ran, operated, never got high on my own supply, Scarface, but definitely understood the industry. And then we were representing a Chinese group, the Warren Buffett of China, to buy the Memphis Grizzlies for $60 million, 14% of the company. And then Steve Ballmer came in and bought the Clippers for $1 billion and screwed up my valuation, but I would have been one of the owners of the Memphis Grizzlies. I'll continue to move forward. Then I got into crypto and blockchain. I was a vice president in business development of a company called Sparkle Coin. If you saw my social media 2 days ago, Snoop Dogg was part of it, Ray J. I raised $150 million, launched that tech crunch, and before we did it, September 23rd, and by October 8th, the Chinese government said crypto and blockchain were illegal. So we lost $120 million because the government, and I was taking 10% of the profits. So that's $12 million out of my pocket just because of government change. We bid it on the Prince of Dubai's smart city. We were going to try to make the city a smart city with blockchain. We came in second. We partnered with Deloitte, a company called Altimini. We lost to Ethereum. If you don't know anything about crypto, at least you know Bitcoin and Ethereum, but not bad for a small company. And after that was all said and done, I then started GTIF Capital. And I'm in El Paso, Texas. I was born in Taiwan. I grew up here. Very, very proud of my city. And I now sit on 8 boards. If you're in the esports space, I'm a partner of FaZe. I'm on the advisory board. The first deal I did for FaZe Clan was a Super Bowl commercial that involved Alex Rodriguez and Charlie Sheen. And we had more engagements, and Gary Vee's the one who actually hooked it up than A-Rod and Charlie Sheen did combined. What's interesting about that story is I put the Super Bowl commercial together with the team in a week and a half, and that was the first time anybody in esports was in the Super Bowl. If you're a big Gary Vee fan, if you ever saw him wear a red FaZe hoodie, that was me giving him the hoodie, and kind of going from there. And then, of course, I sit on 8 different boards. I sit on a $4 billion mining company, and I mean literally mining in Mongolia, down to a commercial real estate company called Comloan, where our partners are the CFO of PetSmart and the ex-CEO of Starwoods, which is the Marriott guys, down to obviously the esports side of things. And I really believe in growing and development. And I can sit there and tell you confidently that I'm a multimillionaire. I can sit there and tell you that I own every nice car you could possibly imagine. I have multiple homes, and I have a Rolls Royce, I have a Bentley, I have a Porsche, I have a GTR, I've got 2 Lamborghinis, I currently have 9 cars. What's the point of that story? It isn't to bang my chest how great it is. The point of the story is I was miserable. That's the point of the story. I was miserable most of my life. And the ones that grew up in El Paso know that I own majority of the clubs and bars and restaurants here. And so I knew Avicii before Avicii was big, and Tiesto. And when I was in that space, I had a country bar, I had a sushi lounge, I had a hip hop bar, I had a house place, and I'm Chinese, which even makes it even more funnier, in El Paso, which is 85% Hispanic. But let me tell you about my background and how I got here. First off, I came to the country homeless. That's the first thing. When I came to this great country, I don't care about your politics. I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I don't talk sports. So except it's esports, let us talk about it. We all have our own views. But when I came to this country, we were so poor that my family we would walk around the ghetto homes in Colorado, and we would pick out the beds, literal beds that had bed bugs, and we would use it as mattresses. I would have to dig through garbage cans for food and toys and clothes. And I'll tell you something, guys. As a very young person who does not understand what the word poor is, you know what the meaning of feeling financially poor is. And it's an awful feeling. By 3rd grade, my parents couldn't help me out with homework anymore because they didn't have a college education. English was their 4th or 5th language. My parents came here as dishwashers and literally made their way up. There were times when my parents would have to hide me in the restaurant because they could not afford childcare. So I would sit, my mom would be a coat exchange girl, and I would be sitting there very quietly, hidden in the back corner underneath jackets, so they wouldn't get caught because they couldn't afford anyone else. I sat there for 10 hours just quietly not doing anything and playing with one toy my whole entire life. It scars you. It emotionally drains you. It makes you feel less than, less superior. not as equal. And when it came down to lunches and dinners, on a good day, because we couldn't get on welfare, I would get an egg sandwich. And if you've ever put an egg sandwich in a lunchbox for 10 hours, it's the most awful smell. There was no exchanging of food. There was no cookies. There was no school supplied meals. Remember, I'm 40, it's very, very different from my age than it was back in your guys' current stuff. And I remember that feeling of feeling just very unworthy of being around people. And when I was 12, the hardest thing that happened to me was my parents had me write the menus for the restaurants that they were renting out, and I had to put it in Spanish and in English. I'm 12 years old, and if I wrote that menu wrong, I was not going to get yelled at. It was going to affect our financial income and food. My upbringing was a great one in a sense where I was very close to my mother, but my father and I, up until now, we didn't have a relationship. My father's an ex-Marine. My father came to this country. My father's a type A. My father had a really bad temper, and it made me really resent my father. And as a Asian American growing up here, and you watch TV and you see these amazing dads, you feel like there's something wrong with what's going on, but you can't even explain it because it's not in the same culture. You know, as I move forward, I talk about these things. I want everyone to understand. I had to overcome English as my fourth language. I had to overcome my parents not being able to do the things that they could do when other kids had more than me. I was a very small kid. For people who haven't physically met me, I'm 6'5", 270, right? But as a kid, I was a really, really small kid. I was really, really poor. And when I see and I hear about the conditions that everyone's in, you know, I didn't have my own room until I was 15 years old. In fact, I didn't even know what a box spring was until I was 15. I just thought it was someone just throwing mattresses on top of mattresses. And our first table was a cardboard box with a yellow drape over it. I want you to imagine the psychological issues that exist as a young kid without explaining it, how inferior you're going to feel comparative towards everybody else and what they have. Okay, this is important for you guys to understand. When I went to college at 18, our lives changed a little bit. You know, the first thing I want to talk about is opportunity. My parents, unbeknownst to whatever the reasoning was, and if you guys write opportunity down, this is very important to write this word down. My parents were working so hard that the reason we had a restaurant was because we were renting the restaurant out from a guy when we lived in Aspen. And although we had a restaurant, we lived in the hood. I mean the hood, right? And my parents had one guy named Pedro Zaragoza, one of the richest men in Mexico. His family's so rich, they're on the actual peso bill. He flew in, he did a private, he wanted to have a restaurant, he flew in his private jet. And what he wanted to do was buy my parents' recipe for teriyaki chicken. There's no Google Internet at the time, thank God. And then when my parents were like, you're crazy, want to buy a teriyaki chicken recipe. And then a day later, he came in and he offered my parents an opportunity to move to Ciudad Juarez, which is right across the border from us here, and live in El Paso and work in Juarez. That's how I got here. So at 10 years old, coming from the hood and being broke, I get in a private jet. And instantaneously, I knew there was something better. Think about that. We can't even afford bologna, and we're spying on a private jet to get here. So of course, my parents asked, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Let's move." I didn't know where El Paso was. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea the things that we're going to face. But opportunity happens, and when it happens, don't question the why. Understand the why. People question the why because they're afraid. They don't have self-belief in themselves. So now they make excuses about why they can't do it. And I know you know what I'm talking about because all of us have done that, including myself. Second thing, when I then moved forward and I became a teenager and started moving forward with it, I was going to college. I was the first in my family to go to college. My parents worked their butts off. We finally got our home at 16. I finally get to go to University of Arizona. Let me tell you guys something. I was told by every single person that I ever did when I did school, that I was never going to make it in business. I wasn't going to pass all the tests, that I was stupid, that I was never going to make anything out of myself. And the shittiest part is I believed it. Because as a young man, as a young person, you're looking for mentorship and guidance from people that respect. Because people don't respect you because they think you're a waste of time because it doesn't help them out, right? When that had happened and that had moved forward with it, I spent 6 years at the University of Arizona. I got in with a 1020 SAT score. For you guys from Texas, I couldn't even pass a TOS test. And I kid you not, I went to a school that had 12 people, and when I got in there, my first class was 440 people. And I almost threw up. I was like, oh my God. And the craziest part is, think about my age at that time. I'm 18. I would not talk to people because I was so self-conscious and so afraid to talk to people. The way I can talk to people now, I built it in my system. I wasn't taught this stuff because I was a very shy, insecure kid, a young man trying to find what's going on. So when you go in the education system, I say this all the time, school didn't fail me. I failed school because I didn't utilize my time. I wasn't efficient in trying to make things work. I pissed on the opportunity to get a degree. In fact, 6 years later, I still owe like $10,000 for school with no college degree. And if you're an Asian, you should have a PhD in 6 years, right? So now I'm culturally being ashamed. I was told I wasn't going to be shit, and I've proven that I'm not going to be shit. And then I have my cousins getting masters and PhDs, and my friends are getting jobs at Honeywell and making 80, 90 grand. And you know how big I felt? This big. And being insecure and not being able to tell anybody that, I was so lost and so afraid to share what I was going through that I basically just sat there and I cried every single day, praying for guidance and doing nothing about it. I want you guys to understand that. When I went back home, the reason I left because both my parents had a heart attack. That means when bad situations happen, you have to make the best of it. That's my point of the story. So they came home, I got 1 year left in school. My sister, being the Asian genius she is, skips a year, gets a scholarship. I'm there for 6. I'm like, dude, I can't even lie at this point. I'm a 22-year-old junior. I gotta dip out. So I did what was best for me. I left my friends, my girlfriend at the time, everyone that I loved, and I thought my world was going to end. I came back to El Paso as a failure with no friends. The crazy part about the story is, you want to talk about why you want to do things and why you don't. It's a matter if you want to or you don't want to. When I was in college, I couldn't work 1 day a week. And then I'm sitting here at my parents' business and I'm working 100 to 120 hours a week. It was 168 hours a week. I was sleeping 3 to 4 hours. So it wasn't that I couldn't do it. I chose not to do it. I couldn't hold a job for 1 day. So a lot of the young people that join this thing, they don't understand. It's not about where you came from or what you're doing. It's about what you want to do, and you stop making excuses for you not being able to do stuff. Because let's face it, no one told you not to watch Netflix. No one told you not to play games. No one told you not to do this and that. You do it on your own. You travel. You know how to party, do all that stuff. But it wasn't meaningful enough in my life to make the impact that I wanted. When that had happened, I remember sitting there at 22, 25. And if you guys are younger than me, and I was driving a beat-up Honda, my sister graduated college, my cousins now have double PhDs. I mean, they're super intelligent human beings. And I could not even look at my friends because I felt like I was worthless. Think about a time in your life that you felt worthless. Be honest with yourself. Why did you feel worthless? Let me give you the super answer. It's because of your ego. So the first thing I teach in the course is ego is not your amigo. Sounds funny, but it's true. Every decision you make is based on ego, which then causes more problems. Think about what I'm saying. If you own a company and your competitor opens another store on the other side of town, what are you trying to do? Well, we're smarter than them. We can do it. We're going to do it. Let's go. Let's get it done. But you know that you don't have the infrastructure and ability to do so. But your ego made you do that. and then cause more stress and problems, because this is the part where people say people buy dumb stuff to impress people that don't matter. That's an ego play. When you look at your car and you look at the things you have, and you're like, that guy has a Rolls, I got to up my game to compete with the Joneses. That's an ego play. When you're trying to wear an $800 Gucci belt and $500 J's and you can't even afford electricity, that's an ego play. So I want you guys to think, how many times in your life are you making bad decisions because of your ego? And the first thing you have to do to let things go is to let go of your ego, because your ego is the reason that you have so much pain and suffering. You're causing your own pain and suffering. Think about what I'm saying. Really think about it. How many times you did something you absolutely didn't want to do, but you did it because your ego told you to do so? Think about that. I'm gonna give you guys 1 second to think about that. Can I get the tie stuff in here? Right? Now, when I was 23 to 25, the one thing I knew and I learned was my niche. What's gonna make me different from every single person? Before I get into how to make a ton of money and how to become a multimillionaire, and you don't have a book for you to buy, I don't have a course for you to sign up, I am as real as I possibly can be. Matt's known me for a while. Alexis is one of my tenants. Jordan, CJ, I met to speak in our podcast. My nephew is on. But I want to tell you guys something. It's because I'm real with people. And I will tell you this. It sucks. It fucking sucks to be this way. It's hard. It's not fun. But the quicker you let go of your ego, the easier your life will be. Now, ego is very different from being a competitor and competing and being focused. Being focused, competing, being a competitor is because you want to win. Ego is you're doing more than you need to do. So you see the guys in baseball, they're taking steroids because their egos, because 72 home runs not enough, I have to do 80. Right? You see the athletes, they should have retired in year 13, but you're playing in year 14 and 15 like Brett Favre did. He should have quit, but his ego wouldn't allow him to do so. It messed up his legacy. Ego is what kills. And I'm going to beat that into your guys' brain, because from now on, when you make a decision, I want you to think about one thing. Before you make that decision, am I making the decision because of my ego, or I'm making the decision if it's good? Any decision I ever make, I think about the ego side of it before I make that decision. That's how I work. It's that simple. And if I think I don't have the time or the ability to structure, like some of you guys already know, I'm sorry, I can't do it, because I'm trying to earn the respect of the people as opposed to play with my own ego. Can everyone relate to that? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, when I found my niche, this is very important. To find your niche is the one thing that's going to separate you from every single person. This is a general topic. I will go into more detail about it, but because of the sake of time, I just want to tell you this. My niche is I speak 5 languages. My niche is I have a very high EQ, right? If I took the IQ test, I'm borderline intelligent. So that's what I think about tests. They're horseshit, okay? Doesn't mean that they don't matter. It just means that just because someone tells you you're not smart, doesn't mean you're not smart. Just because someone says you're not worthy, doesn't mean you're not worthy. Just because you had a crappy environment with your dad, doesn't mean that you're damaged. Just because you didn't have any money growing up, doesn't mean you have to follow the wrong path. You can still do the right thing and teach the next generation. That's what this is all about. And this is why my circles are so small. This is why I'm very, very particular who I deal with, because I don't care. You don't want to deal with me, great. You want to deal with me, fine, right? When I was 25 years old, I remember saying, I speak 5 languages, and I'm like dibble-dabbling, I'm trying to figure it out. I don't have a college degree. And fate happened. Fate happened because my parents, who had a restaurant, working there after 3 years of not having a degree, had a gentleman named Fosse Gallardo, rest his soul. He was the founding partner of Deloitte, and him as the founding partner of Deloitte, this gentleman wanted to work with me because I could speak languages. And I had to figure out the added value, which is why I speak 5 languages. So instead of you having to hire Pablo and Chang and Steve, you have me who can speak all the languages and go from there. Value adding? What is your worth? What can I give you? Not what you can give me. And where everyone screws up is they'll hit me up like, hey, can you help me out? I'm like, sure. And then they'll tell me what I could give them. I'm like, dude, I get 100 of these a day. What is your added value to me? I'll help you out, but you have to add value to people. You just can't just keep asking. So I want you guys to understand that. And my added value was I identified that my niche was going to be different. Now think about what I'm trying to tell you. If you're going to school right now, if you graduate college or whatever you're trying to do, a university, let's face it, if someone went to Harvard, you take the last person from Harvard and the first place person from community college. Fair or not fair? It's true, right? The second thing is when it comes to the textbooks, they're the same type of books taught by the same type of people for 10 years. And so now you're competing with everyone who learned from the same teacher and everything else. So what is making you different? And it's not I work harder than you. That's one factor. But what is really going to identify you? If you're in business, if you're in your personal space, let me tell you something. Personal business, it's the same habits. So if you have an ego in business, you're having an ego at home. And if you don't know what your niche is at home, you have to know what your niche is in business. If you know what's going to separate yourself from everyone else, that is a major problem. And when I realized that I could speak those multiple languages, that really helped me out because I was doing something else. When I talk about opportunity the second time, the very first time they asked me to work at Deloitte, I did not know what Deloitte was. In fact, when I got the job, my friends were like, how'd you get this job? Let me see your business card. Haters. They couldn't understand how a kid who didn't graduate could go to work at Deloitte. And here's the craziest part. They're like, hey, can you run a Chinese group? First off, I had never been to China because I'm from Taiwan. I was like, sure, I'll take the job. I'll do it. I'll make it work. I'll take the $60,000 a year. And what do you think the first thing I did when I got that job was? I pissed away all my money by trying to be a cool guy, by buying bottles and hanging out with models and drinking and buying a brand new car and living beyond my means because it goes back to the ego factor. So I'm from Deloitte. I made it. I didn't have to sit there and graduate. Ha ha ha, take that, my friends. That's the difference between doing it the right way and pissing people off to get more haters. That's what happened. You know what happened after that? I worked there for 6 months. I love the story. When I worked there for 6 months, I was educating. I was asking for training sessions. And you would think that they would train someone. If you're a $46 billion company, you're going to train the newest guy there. What I didn't realize was they weren't training me. I had to know. And so what ended up happening was I got fired. And that $60,000, $70,000, I became the biggest joke in the world. I was there for 6 months, no degree, trying to be a show off, telling everyone how cool I was at 25 years old because that was my insecurities as a person.
David, you're frozen.
I think I'm frozen. All right, we're not frozen anymore. All right, back to what we're doing. Everyone's taking up my internet speed here. But what happened was when I was alone, I was trying to figure this out. I was too proud to ask for help. Does that sound like something that everyone here does? I was too ashamed. What happened to my shame? It made it worse. It made it much more worse. So I'm crying and I'm upset and I'm frustrated and I'm praying and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I'll be honest, thoughts of ending myself happened. I was as low as I could possibly be because at 25 years old, they were right. I wasn't going to be shit. And I proved them right. One day, I wake up and I'm like, dude, screw this. I'm going to make this work. And you know what I did? I went back and I did a thing called add value. Add value is literally the most important thing. Because what add value does is it literally, I made a value proposition. I said, listen, if you let me come back here, and I knew my niche was Asian business, because I speak the language, and let me deal with just the Asian clients, and let me sell every service and function. All you do is have to pay me $2,000 a month, and I will hit a goal of $15,000. Value add, they have to make at least 40%. I took a 60% pay cut to go work back at Deloitte. How many of you would have taken a 60% pay cut to prove that you can do it? In this world that I've met 4 people that would have ever done that. I had to check my own ego and sit there and say I could do it. And here's the crazy part. The whole world's knowledge is in the palm of your phone, and you're too busy doing Instagram and doing silly things. And I'm a big Instagram guy, but if you want to learn and educate yourself, this is my school of education, my cell phone. So there's no excuses for you not to know anything, so that you want to or you don't want to. So guess what I did as a college dropout who had to go back to Deloitte with my face between my tail? I learned everything. I Googled about China, I Googled about news, I Googled about joint ventures, accounting, finance, taxes. I took the initiative, and that's when I realized either you want to do it or you don't, but you're going to make a million excuses on why you shouldn't do it. And if you start doing that, then you should absolutely do it, because you're convincing yourself not to do it. Right? No one teaches you what time the movies are at. No one teaches you how to look up what's going to be on Netflix. No one teaches you how to plan for a trip. But you can't teach yourself, and you tell yourself to do that, how to plan a business, how to learn, how to educate, how to self-improve. You don't want to. And that's the first thing about ego is you don't want to be where you are because you don't want to be where you are. You want to use excuses to stop yourself. So if you're not an immigrant who's a college dropout, who had no relationship with his dad, who was homeless, who was uneducated like myself, then you had it a lot better than I did. And I'm not saying that you had it worse or better. I'm just saying don't use the excuses to restrict yourself, because the only person you're hurting is you. And here's the worst part. Nobody gives a shit if you fail or if you don't fail. They don't care. Oh, I'm so sorry. My bad, Alexis. I move on my life. That's how life works. You have to hold yourself responsible. You have to sit and take the initiative. You have to stop making excuses. You have to want to educate yourself and do the type of education that you so rightfully deserve, because the reality is you deserve it. Just look it up. That's what matters. There's no excuses. So much so, how I know this, I'll be teaching at 3 universities in the upcoming year as a college dropout. Think about what I just said. When I applied for my master's program, after I made it for Deloitte, when I went to Deloitte, they're like, hey, where's your degree? And I was like, what degree? I told you guys that. You have to go get a degree. You know what I did? Forget my bachelor's. I started calling all the master's programs. Say, I'm a partner at Deloitte. I don't have a degree. Can I work for you? They're like, well, we never heard of the situation. We'll bring you in. I got a partial scholarship. The road and the path is whatever you want it to be. The restriction is yourself, and you have to unwind that stuff because you are devaluing yourself because everyone else tells you so, and your ego is allowing them to tell you so. Now do you understand why ego is such a big freaking deal and why you have to check it? That's the reality. We'll go part 2. We have 15 minutes left for my next session. Perspective. Right now it's tough. You might not be where you want to be mentally. You might want to be where you are physically. You may not want to be where you are emotionally. Hell, your sister, your brother, your best friend, your org, your team, your podcast, your uncle, whatever it is. Let me tell you something. We are still, if you're on this call with me, you are richer than 99% of the world. You know how I know this? Because I was one of the 99%. I was homeless. You're richer. You're more blessed. All of you are sitting at a home. All of you are on the internet. All of you have time at 5 o'clock Mountain Time to be on this call. Why are you not being grateful for what you have? How can you expect more if you aren't grateful for what you have? If you had a child who wasn't grateful for what they had, would you give them more? You know the answer is no, right? Whatever you believe in, I'm not talking about religion. If you're not grateful for what you have, how can you expect more? You wouldn't do it. Why would you expect anyone else to do it to you? So one thing I talk about is perspective. Here's what I want everyone to do. And if you sign on late, join the David Chen Pandanomics.com. Make sure you sign back up. If you don't get a session call 5 o'clock next week, go ahead and DM me or DM Pandanomics. We'll make sure you get it. That's your responsibility, not ours. And next week's session, I'll go from there. But let me tell you what it is. On that list, we use the power of perspective. What I want everyone to do is just think about what I'm saying. But promise me you'll do this for the next 7 days. I will promise you it will change your life. I can promise you this. This changed my life. Write down everything you're grateful for and call it the power of perspective. So, Christian, you can say, I am grateful for breathing. Jordan, I am grateful for seeing. Alexis, I am grateful for being around. John, I am grateful for eating. Whatever it is, write down every little thing you're grateful for. Your mom, your dad, your uncle, your cousin, whatever makes you happy. Down to the most simplest things that we take for granted. Like right now, we can't walk around COVID, right? We can't walk around, we can't go to the movies, we can't see our friends, I can't travel, we have to wear masks. We took for granted the most simplest thing in life, which is the function. And what happens is in our lives, we're so caught up with the Joneses and our egos that we're so ungrateful for what we have. And if you look at this list, every morning and every night, or when you're in a bad mood, I can promise you, it's not as bad as you think it is. Because if I remember this because one day my mom's yelling at me and I'm super upset. I'm like, oh gosh, she's so annoying. And then I call my friend and he's like, dude, my mom just died. Grateful. I was like, man, I'd have my mom nag at me all day long, but her disappear. We are all dealt with different cards. Every single one of us. Christian's cards are different from CJ's, which is different from John's, which is different from Alexis, which is different from Victoria's, which is different from Nick's. We're all from different points of view. We all different parts of the world. But if I can teach you guys anything, is the first thing is checking your ego. Secondly, being grateful for what you have. And every single day, write down anything good that happens. Stop focusing on the negative stuff. Write the good stuff. It will change your mindset. Write the good stuff, the stuff that you're grateful for. And look at the list every single day and night. And by the end of the week, by next week, if you guys are still on this thing, if I've added any real value to you, I promise you, the 115 people I've already done this with will tell you their lives completely changed because they're grateful. And when you're grateful, your ego starts to disappear. You stop focusing on what you don't have, you start focusing on what you do have. And that's the big difference. You know, I did private equity. Do you know where I learned about private equity? When I was in the cannabis space, the esports space, China, blockchain, crypto, right there. That's how I learned it. So if I can learn it, y'all obviously have the capabilities doing it. Learn it. Stop making excuses. The quicker you do that, the quicker you liberate yourself from your ego, the quicker you're grateful for things, the more happier you are. And this is how I'm going to tell you guys this. There is a reason that celebrities blow their brains out. There is a reason that billionaires blow their brains out. There is a reason that when they die, they're by themselves. Because they're unhappy with themselves. I can't do anything about certain things that are just inevitable. If you had any control, the one thing I'm going to teach you is, what has COVID taught us? We have no control. I don't care how superior you are, how much money you have, who you think you are. You have no control. If you had control, we'd all be billionaires, we'd all be celebrities, everyone would be healthy, and everyone in your family would be rich, and you have nothing to worry about. You have no control of the environment. You only have control of yourself and your emotions, and what you shoot out and what you input in. It's the truth. Because if you had control, you wouldn't even need to be on this call. Control is the most false sense of reality. Control is based on ego. And when you can't control, it's because your ego is so big that you're not thinking perspective, well, I can't do anything about it. I'm going to have to keep moving forward with it. That's the reality of it. So don't sit there and buy someone's $50,000 program. The reality is, Google what I've done. I've been on Forbes 18 times in the last 15 months. That's not to say how great I am. This is a college dropout who's an immigrant, who was homeless, who's from El Paso, Texas, and so chooses to live here because there are no restrictions besides the ones that you want to put on yourself. And that, my friends, is lesson one. I will give you a book. I promise you, if you read this book, if you can't invest $7.95, you're in the wrong place. Go somewhere else next week. It is called The Magic Kingdom by Tom H. Just put Tom H. on top of that. The Magic Kingdom. I hate reading. I absolutely hate reading. There's one thing that I absolutely hate. One second. Can you hear now, Nick?
Hey, yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
Cool. I'm gonna put you back on mute, okay? The Magic Kingdom is literally a book that changed my life, and I hate reading, right? When you read this book, it's by Tom, what's the name of the book? What's the last name? I have it in my office. I'll tell you guys in a second. But anyways, there's only one by Tom. It's called The Magic Kingdom, right? If you read this book, it is the most easiest read. But when you read it, I want you to think about it. This is written on why Disney is Disney. Disney knows ESPN. Disney is one of the biggest companies in the world. Tom Canelli with the Steve. And it tells you what they do in the 7 and 8 steps. And you as a leader in life, and you as a leader in business, you have to read this book. I'll give you the first example why it's important. When they ask you who your competition is, Christian, or Jordan, or Victoria, who your competition is in business, you know what your answer is? Everybody's your competition because your competitor can spend their money anywhere they want. Lesson one. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, when I first read it, I was like, my competition. Well, in accounting, this is my competition. In the restaurants, this is my competition. The bars is my competition. And I realized everyone's my competition because you as a consumer can spend money anywhere you want. Same thing for life. When you're with your partner, your friends, your family, who's your competition? Everyone's your competition. This book is so important. It's so pivotal for the first lesson that if you read this book, I will promise you by lesson 8, 9, 10, that everyone else that stuck with it is like, holy cow, I can't believe this makes sense. And this is why it works. Right? One last thing I want to say to everyone before I get to like 5, 10 minutes of questions is this. 100%. Some of you have heard this. I'm going to say it again. You have survived 100% of your worst days. When you thought your life was over, when your heart was broken, if you lost the business, when you lost a loved one, when you didn't do what you wanted to do, you thought your world was going to end. Every single person on this call is a survivor. Give yourself some props. You survived every time you couldn't. This is why you'll survive anything. Because your mindset will change because you survived 100% of your worst days. Now here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. What I'm going to ask you to do is take a photo of the screen if you want to, but if you would like to, it'd be great. Tag me, tag Pandanomics, put it on your story. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not charging. All I need you to do that so we can spread the message and continue to help people grow and evolve. And next week, we'll have more cool things. And if you lost anything, you came late, you weren't sure, you can always DM me, but jump on that Facebook. It's called David Chen Panda. You'll be added onto it. Follow the sessions, follow what's going on, educate yourself and grow and believe. So right now, about 10 minutes. Are there any questions that you guys want to ask? Can you tell the next session? Anybody? Jordan, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I felt a little bit on the spot here, but what made you get into real estate? That's probably a good question of mine.
Well, the first answer is this: When you go online, you listen to all these ads about how everyone can make a ton of money, millions of dollars because of real estate. I lost millions of dollars because I didn't know how to do real estate. But the one business that I did do, my current business is, I will tell you, I bought it at 2.3, it's worth about 6.6 million, 3-4 years later. And every single time someone told me it wasn't gonna work, I had to swallow my pride and keep moving forward with it. It's not about the real estate, it's not about other people's money, it's not about flips, it's not how it works. I own a commercial lending platform that's with 3,000 people, right? 3,000 banks. I've done real estate. I wrote real estate in other companies. I'm a lead investor at NYCE.co with Martin Brauhaus of FC Barcelona as my partners. Why I wanted real estate? Because in my investment strategy, I have a short term, I have a midterm, and I have a long term. And those strategies help me with my finances of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. So I'm trying to make immediate cash flow or middle cash flow, which is a little bit more advanced in our program, and long term, then I'm actually watching out for anything that's happening through the short period of times and through the markets and through the economy. So I did do real estate. I still do real estate. I mean, I have a group of real estate, multi-million-dollar properties, but it's from multi-million-dollar failures. That's where it came from.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hello?
Next. Nick?
Hey. Hey,
What's up,
so
man?
I was just like wondering, right? So like I have a few like business ventures that I'm working on, and for example, like I have like an online kind of like business regarding like videography, photography, media, etc. And so like I've been really focusing on networking lately, but I was like wondering from your perspective or in your opinion, if I hit like a kind of stagnant point where I'm not really seeing much progress or I'm not really seeing any like increase of opportunities. I don't know how to word it, but what would you recommend I do if I'm feeling like I'm stuck or stagnant at a point?
First things first is you never know who you're impacting. If you didn't reach out to me on social media, I would reach out to you to come here. First thing, keep that in mind. Second thing is, it's very great to keep the metrics and saying I have to grow, but it's more important to keep pushing out content. Let me give you an example. I have been stagnant at 83 to 90,000 followers for almost 7 months now. I have. And what I really want to do is drop $2,000-$3,000, press promote, and get millions of followers because I know that I could do it. That's an ego play. That's my ego trying to compete with the guys that I know don't hold bearing to me. You never know who you're going to impact. And let me tell you why I say that. Flex Lewis, if you Google him, is a 7-time Mr. Olympia. He's my business partner now. I was speaking on IG Live where I met some of you guys, and he messages me. He follows me. I'm like, oh, Flex Lewis, 2 million followers, big dude, 7-time Mr. Olympia. A month later, he sends me a message. He goes, hey man, you're so inspirational and motivational to me. I just had to follow you. 7-time Mr. Olympia is following some dude from El Paso. You don't know where your impact is. Don't sell yourself short, man. Just keep pushing out the content. You don't know who's watching. I watch you. You don't know I'm watching you, but I do. And I know what you're doing. That's the impact. In fact, half these people I've met, Matt in particular, I met online. Don't let that be the case. Keep growing, keep pushing out content. You can go back and forth. I have different content all the time, but don't get in the trap of ego. I'm not saying that's your issue, but make sure that's not the issue. You don't know who you're impacting. Just keep doing it, man. It's going to eventually happen. And just go from there.
Right. Well, I really appreciate that. I'm definitely gonna like focus more on content and just putting out stuff for people to see, because I definitely do agree. I have had a few people that like reach out to me that like have been like a goal of mine, and so yeah, I definitely will stick to producing more content. And yeah, definitely like the ego thing, I definitely agree with. I don't know if you saw, but I reposted your post on my story because I think that yeah, ego is definitely a creativity killer, and it's just negative in every aspect, in my opinion. But yeah, thanks again.
No problem, my man. Let's keep, I really like to have everyone ask one question so I can get to your guys' questions. I can go down the list. If you don't have a question, you can say, I don't, but I want to give everyone free time. So I'm going down my list with the participants that I have. Next person is Alexis. Alexis, go ahead and tell me what you're looking at as far. You have any questions?
Yeah. Do you ever feel overwhelmed? And if you do, what do you do about it?
I feel overwhelmed every single day of my life. Doesn't look like that on social media, does it?
No.
Doesn't look like that on Forbes. Doesn't look like that on Entrepreneur. Doesn't look like that on Inc. Like anyone that tells you any differently, they're full of shit. I feel overwhelmed every day. But here's the reality of it. I can be upset and cry about it, but the energy I spend there, if I took that energy to actually do my job and do what I had to do, I'd be fine. Being overwhelmed and feeling like you're not going to do it right, like, dude, out of 30 days a month, I have 4 days. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I have Meltzer and Gary calling and Flex following me and all these people, but I'm honest with people. I don't lie about this stuff. We all deal with this. We're human beings. It's normal. Take a deep breath. Look at your power perspective list. Be grateful. And know that you survived 100% of your worst days. And that's why I said what I said today. Because that's the first thing that's killing everybody. When you do that, you're going to be okay. Spend more time doing, less time worrying. Because let's face it, how many times have you worried about something and it doesn't even happen? Right? That's how I do it. One day at a time, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Nephew, you have a question?
What do you think of Forex?
About what?
Forex
Forex?
exchange. Yeah, Forex exchange.
Look, nephew, I love you to death, but I'm going to tell you what it is. If there was a quick way to make money, I would have figured it out before you would have, and so would have Mark Cuban and Warren Buffett. You know why I don't sell books and anything else, even though I could? Because I'd be lying to you guys on how I'm doing it. If I don't tell you the struggles, you can't believe me. How many people will tell you their struggles and be this vulnerable? If you want to do it, you can, but do it because you're comfortable trading with your ability to do so, small amounts of money. There are no big things. If you don't understand what you're doing, that is no different than gambling and putting $100. You're way too young to gamble. Don't tell your dad I said this. And put it on the tables. It's the same thing. You have to understand, you're very young. It takes time. And the older I get, the more I realize it's just going to take more time for me to be able to do that and move forward and go from there. Christian, do you have a question, my friend?
Yeah. You said that you lost a lot of money when you first got into real estate because you didn't know how to properly do it. How old were you and what other income did you have at the time?
So I do a thing called corporatepreneur. I always had a job while being an entrepreneur. 168 hours a week. You work 40 hours a week. You sleep 7 hours a day. You travel 2 hours. If you do the math, I have this chart. You still have 40 hours a week to do whatever you want to do. And most people get caught up because they're doing this and they're doing that. Like, I don't have any time. That's a crock of it. Number two, when you're doing real estate, it's not just buying and selling. It's your ability to understand what a contractor does. Labor laws. The first time I bought a home, I was like, oh, it's worth $120,000. I'm getting it for 90. With closing costs and realtor fees, it was $120,000. I didn't make any money. If I understood the market in El Paso was going to increase 8% a year, man, I could put that on anything and make that in a month. I didn't really understand it because I was too busy listening to these get quick rich schemes that you hear all the time. Come on, man. If anyone could do that, I would have already done that stuff by now. So it's really understanding the knowledge. Understand that when you're doing multi-million-dollar projects like I've done in the heart of El Paso, even though it's a great project, nobody wanted to fund it because it was El Paso. That's really an issue. So understanding the whole thing before you do it and being honest with yourself, that's what I did. That's how I started going from there. And that's what was different because I truly had to understand it in order to do it. That's why in esports, I do everything because now that's how I do everything. I have to understand it all, or else I won't do it. Matt, do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you're talking to people that are actually listening to you about ego and how they could change themselves and make themselves better. But what happens when I What should I do in a situation where I am trying to tell someone that they have an ego and they feel like they don't have an ego, and I give them the same advice you give me and they still don't listen to me? How do I approach that? Do I let them fail because just to let them see what I'm trying to say, or how do I approach that situation?
Well, it depends on who it is. If
It's a
you're talking
player
about
for
team
me.
member,
He's
I'll be
my best,
straightforward.
one of my best Call of Duty players.
Drop them.
Just him, drop him.
Why would you keep them? That's your ego. You're doing what's best. You're telling them that this is a problem. They don't want to listen. If they don't listen now, they're never going to listen. Why deal with it? Why? You have more. There's billions of people in the world. Why?
I feel like as part of me is attached to helping a person. Because like you're helping me in terms of understanding shit, I feel like I can help them understand shit.
Matt, I'm helping you because you listen and you understand. I have
Yeah.
NFL players that listen to me, NBA players, multimillionaires, Flex Lewis. I have friends that don't listen to me. I drop them. Not because I'm trying to be a jerk. We're not talking about this stuff. We can just talk about whatever we want to talk about. We watch the game, sure.
True.
But if it's my business and my life and you don't want to listen to me, first tell me why you don't want to listen to me. Let me understand the reasoning. Let me understand where your perspective, maybe my perspective is different from your perspective. That matters. But if they're being like that, what do you think is going to happen when they get bigger? Their ego gets bigger, right?
Yeah, it turns into a piece
What
of shit.
happens? And who invested all that time and money? You did.
My dumbass.
Well, I don't know about that, but it just is what it is.
You're right.
CJ, you have a question?
Thank you.
No problem, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be worded weirdly because I don't really know how to ask this, but like I'm trying to get in contact with a foundation and I'm trying to get like a job created in all the hospitals to help people with IBD. What I'm really trying to do is get an IBD rep at every hospital. But like the people I'm trying to talk to, like my doctor, I've told him to like contact the foundation. I try to contact the foundation. I'm not getting anywhere. It's been like a few months already. How would I like get the best results, and who would I talk to for that?
Keep doing it.
Just keep asking, just keep pushing emails.
Matt, my man, I say that because you think that at a certain point, you deserve to have an answer. That's an ego play. Do you know how many banks I had to go? You know how many banks I had to go to get the funding for this project? 76 go F-offs. 76 of begging. 76 to make it a $6 million project. Got to keep going. If it means that much to you, you're going to keep doing it no matter what anyone says.
All right. Thank you.
Simple, man. You're going from there. Last person is Victoria. You have a question? Go ahead.
I do not have a question, but I just want to thank you for getting on here and allowing us to get on. I also loved everyone else's questions, and I really took value from what it is that you had to say and how you answered everyone's questions too. I took note of that. So I really appreciate that, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nick, you have the coolest backgrounds. They keep changing. I love them. You're going to have to show me how to do that. Victoria, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Promise me you guys will at least read the book. If you don't read the book, at least promise me you'll do the list. And the last thing is, I can't force you to do anything. You don't need motivation, you need action. That's it. And go from there. But I'm late for my other session. Same time next week. If you can't show up, please give me the courtesy to let me know you can't show up. Just this mutual sign of respect, and we'll go from there. All right, guys. Thank you. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much, man. Take care.